Week 2 of the NFL season kicks off tonight, so it's time to make our picks today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100.
Joe, I think we should probably address something right off the top. It's week 2 game picks.
Yeah.
Okay. For the NFL. What are we doing with what happens at the end of the season?
Oh.
Is this just an add-on to our bets proposition? We did the bold predictions and did head-to-head bets based off of things, and some of those have already gone nuclear.
Maybe people should tell us. Maybe people should leave a comment on YouTube and tell us what the consequence of winning head-to-head pick them against each other would.
I think the consequence should be when the Dolphins and Bills play in the AFC Championship game, we have to go, and the loser has to wear the other guy's team stuff for the game.
I feel like that's for the game. How do you know who wins the game?
You don't.
Oh, you have to go. No, are you kidding? So the results of the pick 'em, brother. You think I'm showing up to Rich Stadium in Dolphins gear?
If you lose the pick 'em for the AFC Championship game, yeah.
So if that happens,
if the Dolphins and Bills play in the AFC Championship game, loser of pick 'em, we both have to go to the game, obviously, and the loser of the pick 'em has to wear to the game the other guy's stuff.
I'm down with some type of shenanigans like that. Maybe not to the AFC Championship game, but
I mean, I kind of wanted to just play it up to the worst case scenario.
All right, I think it's taking the field. I think it's unlikely that the Bills and Dolphins play.
Mathematically speaking, it would be very unlikely.
Very unlikely that would happen. So I feel pretty safe with agreeing to that.
Okay, well, that's neither here nor there. We have week 2 picks. Out of week 1, the reason why I was obviously asking is because I was one game better in the week.
Stop the count, right, Kyle? Stop the count.
I'm just going to match your picks the rest of the way. I went 10-6 in the straight up pick 'em. Joe, you went 9-7 and Locked On NFL Scouting against the spread, which was the roster and coaching evaluation project we did in the summertime, using that and grading that for lines in the games. Went 8-8. So no losing weeks last week. And here's to another week of no losing weeks in week 2.
All right, shall we?
Let's do it.
Make our picks, then debate the discrepancies. Yeah. Thursday Night Football, Eagles. Vikings, Eagles, I go Eagles. Home team, short week.
How close is it? Just as simple as that for you? Do you think there's more storylines here?
Better team at home, short week.
I'm a little worried about some of the injuries to Philadelphia and the defensive back 7. Reed Blankenship banged up. Kobe Dean left. James Bradbury's out. I do think Philly up front probably still has enough to cover and win the football game. Ed Ingram didn't look great. And I know that's a big spot for Minnesota. So I will go Eagles as well. The spread, according to our friends over at FanDuel, is 6.5 points. So we're not picking with the spread. NFL, like the roster rankings, is picking against the spread. And roster rankings has the line for this game based off of where we graded it at just over 5 points. So with the spread actually being 6.5, the NFL Scouting roster power rankings has Minnesota covering 6.5 points.
All right.
Okay. Going to the 1 o'clock slate.
Yep.
Let's start with the big one. Kansas City and Jacksonville. Kansas City at Jacksonville. Kansas City getting, casually the best defensive tackle in the game right now and the best tight end in the game right now back off of their roster that they played with in week 1.
Mm-hmm.
AFC divisional round rematch from last year. I have a hard time seeing Kansas City going 0-2.
Is that you're picking the Chiefs?
I'm picking the Chiefs.
I'm picking the Jaguars.
Really?
Yeah.
Sell me.
Well, we'll debate the differences for sure in the last segment, but I think Jacksonville at home, hot, humid, a lot different than what's going out there in the Midwest. And I think what are you really getting from Chris Jones and Travis Kelce in terms of like, are they calloused up and ready to go? Do Kansas City have enough in the passing game outside of Travis Kelce to be more consistent against?
You're real worried about these wide receivers, huh?
Oh, I watched Thursday night. Yeah, I'm nervous about it. I think the Jaguars have a little bit more edge rush to stress the Chiefs with those tackles, and I don't know, man. I think Trevor Lawrence at home lost to this team twice in a row in very competitive games. I don't know, man. I kind of feel like they get theirs.
Okay. Well, NFL scouting does not agree with you either, Joe. The power rankings has the line at 4.5. The actual line at FanDuel is 3.5, which means the NFL Locked On NFL Scouting power rankings or roster rankings, I should say, has the Chiefs covering the 3.5 points in Jacksonville. I'll just take Kansas City to win the game.
Okay.
Joe Marino famously fading Patrick Mahomes.
Nope, not fading Patrick Mahomes.
Let's go to another big game in the 1 o'clock slate. Ravens and Bengals. This is a really interesting one when you consider Cincinnati coming off of one of the most underwhelming performances of Joe Burrow's career. Baltimore won their game against Houston, but at what cost?
Yeah,
with J.K. Dobbins and Marcus Williams, and there's some other guys that are banged up that we'll have to see. I know Ronnie Stanley got banged up in the game. Tyler Linderbaum got banged up in the game. Will it impact their performance even if they are able to go? So there's some storylines here and a Ravens passing offense that is still in the works. Zay Flowers look good. Zay Flowers looked electric, but Cincinnati's at home here, and the FanDuel line is at 3. I know that's less important than what we need to do to pick the game specifically. I think Cincinnati wins.
Well, I think the Ravens are the absolute worst possible team for Cincinnati to get under these circumstances with the defense and how the defense has had success against Cincinnati, even when Cincinnati's right. But I think the Bengals at home, I think that's a difference maker here. Plus Baltimore and their own injuries that they're dealing with, in addition to kind of still settling into that offense. I think I'm leaning into Cincy, but man, I think this is in so many ways not the opponent that the Bengals need in their bounce back week.
How about Marlon Humphrey's another storyline for this game too, because he didn't play in week 1, and you'll need him. That's one of the things, and you'll need him to be at his best. So, where's he at? But thinking about how Baltimore, I think, does match without Marcus Williams, you feel really good about their ability to defend the middle of the field, but that's not really Cincinnati's game anyway. So I'll lean into T. Higgins, eBay Motors, fantasy fit of the week. And I'll go Cincinnati. NFL scouting has it at just over 2.5. Cincinnati should be favored by 2.5. So it has Baltimore covering the 3-point spread. Go rapid fire here with some of these.
Yeah, well, let's get
less juicy games.
I think this Raiders Bills. I think Bills win it. Bills win at home.
Locked On NFL scouting against the spread. The spread right now at FanDuel is 9.5 points. Our spread with our rankings and the methodology that we are applying is 8 points. So we'll have the Raiders to cover 9.5. We'll see.
Bunch more to get to here today, but first, everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. The Jase case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to the medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure that you have the medication in hand. Jase Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. So don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. JaseMedical.com. That's JASE Medical.com. Promo code LOCKEDON.
Okay, Joseph. We will work through. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 more 1 o'clock games on the slate to dive through. Chargers and Titans. Go Chargers, go on the road.
Yeah, I think Chargers get this one on the road for sure.
Big bounce back for them.
Yeah.
I think they're better in the trenches versus Tennessee's strength with Jeffrey Simmons, and obviously Kellen Moore showed a dynamic ability to run the ball. The spread in this game is Tennessee at home is getting 3 points. We have the Chargers at -3.5. So we are taking the Chargers to cover the spread in this one. Colts Texans. This is you and Chris Schubert leverage game, right?
Yeah.
The long play.
I thought this was one of the hardest games to pick this week, man.
I agree with you.
What do we really know about these teams? They both have first-round quarterbacks, like tons of questions on the roster, injuries.
Right. You feel so much better about it if Houston had anything what their offensive line was supposed to look like.
Right, man. They tried so hard.
Yeah.
Tried so hard. I'm just going to go with the home team. I'm going Houston at home. Even though that was not a great recipe, right? Like last week, was it the home teams won like 6 games?
Right.
I feel like it's the right thing to do, though.
The Colts are favored by a point in this game. No, I'll make it interesting. I'll go Colts. No real rhyme or reason. I want to keep the pick'em interesting. So I'm gonna not do the thing I said I was gonna do at the top and just fall in line with Joe. Are you thinking about changing now?
Maybe, because I feel like I'm more comfortable with Richardson. I'm the most comfortable with Richardson of any of the rookie quarterbacks.
It looked good. He looked good in week 1. He definitely did. He definitely did. Locked On NFL Scouting roster power rankings has the Colts at -1.68 as compared to the actual line is 1. So NFL Scouting also has the Colts covering the 1-point spread, obviously, so it has the Colts picking the game. Bucs home against the Bears. What a nightmare Chicago was. Tampa's got to feel good. Some coherent defense, which you'd expect. Some gritty offense, I think, is probably an appropriate way to describe Tampa's offensive performance. Tampa's at home. Chicago's coming down to the Bay for a 1 o'clock kick. It's not a great recipe, Joe. I'm going to be honest with you.
2-0 Bucs, man.
2-0 Bucs. You're picking the Bucs?
Yeah, I think their defense is sound enough to really make it tough on the Bears, and I just don't feel like. I mean, you're with the Bucs, you're worried about their offensive line, but you're not worried about the Bears' defensive line.
Right.
I'm going with the Bucs,
I don't think Chicago has what it needs to really take advantage of that weakness on Tampa.
Exactly.
NFL Scouting has Tampa as the better team. Tampa at home. But it has the spread only at 1.5 instead of 2.5. So NFL Scouting can take the Bears to cover. Now, there's a human element here. That's why you and I aren't picking against the spread, because the science behind it is fascinating, right? I would not touch this game with a 30,000 football from a betting perspective, because I could see Justin Fields being crazy and creating a ton with outside of structure, because I feel like based off what they look like in week 1, that's where it's going to have to happen. And the game can get weird. And if Chicago gets a couple turnovers, if Baker Mayfield makes 2 boneheaded plays, I could very easily see Chicago winning the football game. I would not touch this game.
There's always a path. Always a path.
The last 1 o'clock game, the Atlanta Falcons at home hosting our 4th ranked in the NFC Green Bay Packers.
Go Pack, go. I got the Packers in this game, going on the road and winning.
It's going to be a clean sweep because I also have the Packers winning the game. I just feel like that.
And Atlanta's favored at home, huh?
No. They're
getting 1.5. My bad.
They're getting
1.5. Gotcha.
Yeah. So Green Bay's favored by 1.5. This was the closest spread that we had to what the actual spreads are. We have it at Green Bay plus or Green Bay minus 1.54. So by 4/100ths of a point, we are taking the Packers to cover minus 1.5. Yeah. That's how I feel like there is some feasibility with what we are applying, even though we're not doing things like weather and all that, because the vast majority of these spreads are within point and a half. So it makes it interesting to see how they fall. And obviously we're hoping for a better week this week than what we did last week.
I guess Green Bay's reinforcements there with like Rashawn Gary back, but also Devontae Wyatt playing really strong in week 1.
Gary looked good, didn't he?
Yeah.
Okay. To the 4:00 slate. Detroit at home against the Seahawks, who laid an egg and just put Abe Lucas on IR.
Yeah, I like Detroit at home, Kyle. Extra time to prepare. I think the tackle injuries for Seattle are concerning, especially with Aiden Hutchinson and what he's capable of. The Lions offense is always really good at home. The Seahawks defense looked like a disaster last week. I think the Lions are going to ride that week 1 win into a really electric home atmosphere and win this game.
Give me the Seahawks. NFL scouting has this as a coin toss game. It's never as bad as it feels. These teams are actually back-to-back with one another in our roster rankings. Detroit's at home. I think Seattle is going to have an opportunity after a disastrous week 1 performance to avoid falling into a big-time hole. Detroit's riding the high of beating Kansas City, potentially an emotional letdown there. I don't know.
You're playing into some dynamics here.
Got a lot of young players on the roster. It's just never as bad as it feels. And for Seattle,
100%.
Right.
If they beat the Rams, though, if they would beat the Rams, I don't know, like 21-13, like I still would have picked Detroit.
Yeah.
That's cool. Take your heels in, baby. Let's go.
All right. Dallas hosting the Jets.
Never as good as it seems, Kyle. You ride the Jets, baby, into Dallas.
Needless to say, I think the Dallas Cowboys will win this football game.
Yeah, I do too.
And I'm fairly confident you do too. Yeah. That line is up to 9.5. So
Aaron Rodgers effect.
The Aaron Rodgers effect. I think that is an emotional reaction from both games in week 1 where Dallas just blasted the Giants, and the Aaron Rodgers effect for the Jets. It's a big number. We have it closer to a touchdown spread, which I know is closer to where it actually started earlier in the week, and it's since moved. There's been a ton of money that's flooded in Dallas's direction. So at the 9.5 that it is currently on the FanDuel Sportsbook app, Locked On NFL Scouting roster rankings is going to have the Jets to cover 9.5.
All right.
We have 3 more 4:00 games, Joe. Let's get at least one of them in.
Okay.
Washington at Denver. Denver is home and at FanDuel currently favored by 3.5 points.
I like Denver at home.
I also like Denver at home.
Washington farted around with the Cardinals, dude, in Washington last week.
Based off the game script, if not for the defensive touchdown, like it could have very easily been a loss for Washington. So
right.
Those 2 teams were far and away the 2 lowest ranked teams that we have in the NFL right now. So I am with you. The roster rankings spread is at 4 points versus 3.5. So we have Denver at home covering that as well.
All right, we got more.
Let's get one more.
Okay,
we gonna do one. We can do one like old school. They say in old school with Frank the Tank. You know that?
Yeah, Frank the Tank's a big reference these days in my world. So
yeah, imagine not watching on YouTube. Rams at home getting more than a touchdown against the San Francisco 49ers.
I'm only concerned with the who wins the game. I think
right.
the 49ers continue their momentum and take care of this. And maybe the Rams can make it a little closer than we anticipated. But there could be some issues here in the trenches here for the Rams to stay in it.
Well, I think it depends on who you ask, because I'm also taking the 49ers to win the game. Locked On NFL Scouting roster rankings has the Rams covering the 7.5. This is closer to 6 for our spread. So as a result, Rams at home, kind of overachieving. Matthew Stafford looked good. Obviously, you're facing San Francisco. It's a little bit different story than facing Seattle. Pass rush will be pretty different, but it's also a divisional game. They can get weird sometimes too. We'll take the Rams against the spread, but Joe and I both head up picking the 49ers to win the football game.
All right, we got some more picks to make. We got some differences to debate, but we need to tell you about Prize Picks. You got to check them out. Prize Picks is the funnest. It is the most exciting. It is the easiest way to play daily fantasy sports, and the format is awesome. It's just you versus the numbers. It's not you versus thousands of other players, which often includes the sharks, includes the pros. It's just you versus the numbers. All you do is you select 2 or more players, you pick more or less on their projected stats, and you place your entry. That's it. It doesn't take long. Picks can be made in under a minute, and when you win, the withdrawals are super easy and they're super quick. I love watching football. I love it even more when I have a Prize Picks entry going into the game. It just makes it that much more exciting. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Joe, we have 4 more games to pick, and then we got to go over the discrepancies that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Cardinals at home against the New York Football Giants, who laid the egg of all eggs in primetime last week to start their season.
And the Giants are a big bounce back game here on the road against a lesser team. Maybe the Giants aren't going to be a playoff team this year. There's some chinks in the armor, but my goodness, do I think they bounce back in a big way this week.
Yeah, I can't envision the performance of last week showing up in a negative way for New York. I think it is all the motivation for them to come in and take care of business against a team that I think is really going to struggle with matchups to dictate terms to the Giants as a what you would expect to be a better coach football team. So I'll take the Giants as well. That line is at 6. We have it at 8.5. So we're taking the Giants to cover the 6 points. And that started earlier in the week closer to 4 and has swelled. And we think it could continue to swell, and our roster rankings would still take the Giants. So pretty high confidence points in that one. Joe, we have 3 games left to pick, and we're into Sunday Night Football, which means we're doing the dumb thing this week where we have 2 Monday Night Football games at the same time. But first, let's do the Sunday game. The Dolphins in Foxborough to face the New England Patriots.
I like the Dolphins.
I'm picking the Dolphins.
Yeah, I'm picking the Dolphins. I think it's a really fascinating matchup because of familiarity, right, with the Patriots and Dolphins, and Bill Belichick as a really good defensive game planner in Foxborough. Like, all that's good. I don't think it matters who's running with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I mean, there's just more dynamic talent on the Patriots, and I think the Dolphins get to 2-0.
Yeah, it's the Jimmys and Joes versus X's and O's debate, right?
Yeah, but you got X's and O's. What do you mean? It's not like the Dolphins don't have that.
That's the case for New England to win the game is from a coaching perspective. Yeah. But if Miami has, and I said this with my debate on the Locked On crossover for Thursday with Locked On Dolphins and Locked On Patriots, if you took the 5 best players on either roster and you held them up against each other, I think the 5 best players for Miami are needle movers that change the math of the game and change the perspective of whether or not you can be right with the call and still be wrong on the field. Where I feel like New England probably has Kyle Duggar. Like, is Kyle Duggar the math changer on the New England Patriots? They got
to play all their safeties, man. That's what Peppers has got to play. Duggar's got to play.
Phillips and
Colbert,
Mills.
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, and if you want to play big dime, like,
here comes the run game.
You might see the Dolphins run for more than 15 times in a football game this week.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if the Patriots can be right. That's
when the
my issue.
Patriots, Mike Debate was saying the Patriots want to live in 12.
Personnel on offense?
Yeah.
Well, it's all the rage these days, huh?
You're doing the Dolphins a favor to play 12 because now you're inviting them to play the seventh hat in the box as compared to the Chargers had success because they kept the Dolphins in nickel and then ran out of 11.
What's interesting is the Bills played 12 and the Jets said we're staying in nickel. So everybody's playing it different, dude.
Right.
It's the new thing.
Who's your nickel? It depends on who your nickel is, right? Like that's why the for all of the devalued discussion around the nickel position, it's a critical component to how you play.
And it's almost like it's no longer just have your Mike Hilton, Kenny Moore, Taron Johnson, like those type of guys. You might need one of those plus a Jeremy Chin type hybrid guy. Like you're going to want to have versatility
and then a coverage guy.
Yeah.
And then if you got a real alien that can do both, that's when it's like a really special player.
Yeah. So, yeah. The evolution of the nickel position in the NFL is fascinating.
For the record, the Locked On NFL Scouting roster power rankings has this line at Dolphins minus 2.5 in New England. So with the line currently sitting at 3 and it was 2.5 early in the week, it is currently leaning Patriots to cover by a slim margin. Browns and Steelers in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is getting 2.5 points at home against the Cleveland Browns, Joe.
I'm rolling with Cleveland, Kyle.
Joey.
Rolling with Cleveland, man. Got to go with the Elves.
The Elves. You're dumb. The Browns losing Jack Conklin hurts a lot. And I understand Pittsburgh lost Hayward. I understand Pittsburgh, Deontay Johnson, missing time. They're banged up. But Pittsburgh's at home on Monday Night Football against the Browns, which is a team that they have historically had a lot of success against, which is why I'm picking Pittsburgh to win the football game. This is what we do every year. We'll write them off, and then they'll come back, and they'll make
I'm not writing them off. I just like Cleveland. I like what that defense showed against Matt Canada and that offense, man.
For the record, with the Pittsburgh Steelers injuries, they do have the line at 2.5. We had it at 2 before the injuries. That since moves it higher than 2.5. So Locked On NFL Scouting will take the Browns to cover. Panthers and Saints.
Your Carolina Panthers.
Not my team.
That was the weirdest. Dude, you could be up 2 games.
What do you mean?
Last week you picked Carolina to win that game.
I know. It's a boneheaded play. I won't make the same mistake twice. I'm picking the Saints.
Picking the Saints as well. Coming in, spoiling Bryce Young's home debut on Monday Night Football here in the Queen City.
The spread is at 3 points. Locked On NFL Scouting roster power rankings has this line at 2.5. So Carolina by 0.5 point will be the team that the power rankings is taking.
You see Brady Christensen's out for the year?
Yes.
So both their guards are gone right now. That's tough, man. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the interior O-line with Bryce Young as your quarterback.
Bryce Young is the quarterback. It's tough.
That's tough, man. That's tough.
So there you have it. Our discrepancies. We have 4 this week. Last call to change.
Yeah, I'm not riding and dying with Houston. Give me the Colts.
Okay, so you're coming back onto the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and it's gonna. My philosophy is, well, first of all, I'm not digging my heels in there. All right, into one of the weirdest
all the
games
hills
of the
to
week.
die on.
Yeah, it won't be that one. But at the end of the day, I think Anthony Richardson's been the best, like throughout preseason and what we've seen in one game. I think he's been the best rookie quarterback, and I'm gonna roll with that for now.
Also worth acknowledging with that matchup, Jalen Petrie went to the hospital with an injury from the Baltimore game. He's since been released, but he did not practice yesterday. So his status is certainly in question for Houston, and that'd be a big blow because he's probably their best defensive player right now. So that leaves us with Kansas City and Jacksonville. We are different. Seattle and Detroit, we are different. And Pittsburgh and Cleveland, we are different.
Like 3 of the better games this week were different on, which makes it fun.
Yeah. Games I would actually want to watch.
Yeah.
One in the 1 o'clock slate, one in the 4 o'clock slate, and one on Monday Night Football. So I actually can watch all of them.
Well, Sunday Night Football. Oh, Monday Night Football. Yeah.
Yeah, Monday Night
Oh, so just a smooth sailing week, you know?
That's right.
Look at that. I like it. I'm not changing. I'm good. I'll roll with the Lions, Jaguars, and what's the other team that I have?
Browns.
Cleveland. All right, I'm good. Kyle, you picked Cleveland to beat Cincy, and this week you're like, no. Pittsburgh beats Cleveland.
I know, it's just week 1. It's the week 1 hex. I am teetering on changing.
You got.
Yeah, I got butterflies now thinking about it. The injuries,
I mean, Jack
too much
Hawkins
unknown. I'm gonna
TJ
be conservative. I'm gonna fall in line with you on that one.
All right, so we're down to just 2.
Chiefs, Jaguars, and Lions, Seahawks. We are
my Lions, my Jaguars,
Chiefs, and our Seahawks. That's going to do it for us on this episode of Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He's Joe Marino. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We are out of here for the day. We have takes on takes coming to bring the week to a close tomorrow. Plan accordingly. We hope to see you there.